Hi guys, welcome back. It's Amanda again, and today we're day 26 of the pantry challenge, where I utilise all of the ingredients that are in my pantries and not allowed to buy anything else from the grocery store. And it's freezing, it's 8 degrees and very chilly, and I need to make some soups up. So I've been having a lot of pumpkin soup over the last few weeks, but I managed to get hold of some really large cans of tomatoes when I stumbled across a commercial kitchen that was going out of business, and so they had some stock left over, and so they had what I'd been hunting for some time, which was the large cans of tomatoes, crushed tomatoes. These are pure tomatoes with tomato juice, and they do have some acidity regulations in them, regulators in them, some citric acid. So I needed to recan them into smaller sizes or use them up, and today I'm going to make my delicious tomato soup. So with ingredients just from the shelves that I have smoked paprika as well as sweet paprika, some onion powder, garlic powder, some white pepper. From the shelves I need some vegetable stock. I need 1 litre of that, and I also need tomato puree, 100 grams as well, and I've got really big cans of them as well, but I don't want to open up giant cans of the tomato paste at this stage, so I'm just going to stick with the ones that I'd already previously canned. And I also want 1 capsicum as well, 1 jar of capsicums. So these are my oldest ones. They were canned back in May, so I'm going to use a jar of that as well. Now, for those of you that are not going to be using the canned tomatoes, you're going to need at least 5.5 to 6 kilos of fresh tomatoes, which will then need to be baked in an oven, and so that uses extra power for us, which is the reason I'm going with the canned ones, because it's overcast. We don't have a lot of power being generated with the solar system at the moment, so I want to do this as quickly as possible, not using up so much energy. So if you are going to use fresh tomatoes, you would need to have about 6 kilos of tomatoes sliced and roasted in the oven with some brown sugar just to caramelize them. Onion powder and garlic powder. So I'm going to be using 4 tablespoons of onion powder, which equals 4 fresh onions, and I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of garlic, which equals 4 garlic cloves in total. Now, once I've opened the cans of tomatoes, I'm just going to drain them, and I'm going to strain them through the strainer, pressing really well until I end up with this liquid. So this is the consistency of a normal tomato soup, just a little bit thinner, and it will become more thicker as we cook it down. So I have to do this twice over and get it on the stove to cook with 1.5 tablespoons per can of brown sugar, just to help sweeten it a little bit. So this is can number 2. So like I said, you can use fresh tomatoes, and if you haven't got a large strainer, or if you don't want to use a strainer, you can definitely use either a food mill or a tomato juicer. The purpose of this is to get rid of the seeds and the skin removed. If you want to go through the process of removing the skins and the seeds before doing this and then blending this in a blender, then that's fine. Once again, uses extra power, and here at the moment I don't want to be using extra power, and I want to make this as quickly as possible. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start making the soup. So I'm just warming this up. This will be pressure canned in the end. So I have 4 litres in total from my 2.5 kilo cans of crushed tomatoes. So if you're doing fresh tomatoes and you're following the recipe, you'll be aiming for 4 litres of tomato juice or puree from your tomatoes. To that, we're now going to add the brown sugar. Like I said, 1.5 tablespoons per 2.5 kilo can. So the recipe will, because I'm doubling my recipe, so it will be 3 tablespoons of brown sugar added to this, and then we'll see how that tastes. So I'm not going to pack the brown sugar into the spoon so it's really dense. 3 tablespoons of brown sugar is not that much, considering I'm making 8 pints of liquid in total when I'm finished. Right, so 3 tablespoons of the brown sugar, and I'll just get a stirring of that, and then I'm going to add to this 1 tablespoon of garlic powder and 4 tablespoons of onion powder. Now I will include the recipe in the description for this video, because I am doubling the ingredients as well. So now that I've got all my spices and my sugar that's been added, I'm just going to add the tomato paste last of all and the vegetable stock. And then we're just going to bring this up to the boil and then simmer it for a further 30 minutes just to get those seasonings amalgamated throughout the soup. In the meantime, I'll get all my jars heated up, get the pressure canner on and warmed up, and so we're ready to start pressure canning this once we're finished. Now we're just going to season to taste. It's just coming up to a simmer now, so now is a good time to taste, although the flavours will still mature, and of course when we pressure can it, it will then be cooked for a further 30 minutes, so they'll still intensify as well. Tastes just like canned soup, like Heinz tomato soup, minus the butter and the cream and all of the other things that in commercial soups. So this particular one for me is gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, everything. So this one is also vegan, vegetarian, whatever you want to call it. And ready to go into my fowl of the cola jars, which are currently just warming up. It is still only 9 degrees in the house. It's freezing. I've got the fire on, but it's still freezing. I was going to make bread today as well. Too cold, can't get it to rise in this temperature until it warms up, so maybe later. But first of all, I'll get the pressure canner ready so I can start to heat up the water for the pressure canner as well. Okay, so I have looked at a couple of different books for processing times for tomato soup or vegetable soups. So the Easy to Preserve cookbook, which is from the Cooperative Extension of the University of Georgia, have got down for quarts 50 minutes or 60 minutes. The Ball Book of Canning have a tomato soup recipe in it, and their suggestion is 60 minutes for quarts and 50 for pints. But this Ball Book is what threw me and got me confused, because it's also got a spicy tomato recipe in it, and it suggests 20 minutes for pint jars, not 50. Not going to follow this one. I'm going to stick with the two which both suggest 50 for pints and 60 for quarts. So I'm going to be popping this into my fowl of the cola jars. Now these fowl of the cola jars are size 27, so they're 850 mils, so larger than a pint, smaller than a quart, but in between. So I will be doing them for the full 60 minutes after I have filled them up, given them an inch of headspace, and then cleaned the rings really well. I've got to add bands to these. So this is a lid system that has bands around the top that we add rubber bands, and then on top of that we have a stainless steel cap, and then some clips hold them in place until they're cooked. So this is an Australian system for those that are not familiar with fowl of the cola. These particular jars ceased manufacture in 1976, and the number 27s, and they're still in use with the clips, and the bands are still able to be bought. My jars date back to 1951 according to the stamps on the bottom of them. The really old jars that are 1950s are a green colour. I don't pressure can with those. I only pressure can with these clear ones. They're not as old, and I've pressure canned with these now a couple of times successfully and I haven't had any problems. So I'm going to stick with just using, and it's the best size for me, 850 mils. That's a perfect size for soup, because I'm the only person generally who is drinking or eating the soup. So these are warming up now, so the soup is cooking on the stove. I'll get the rest of the ingredients ready and get the bands onto these jars, because it takes a little bit of time. They're a bit fiddly. Okay, so if we're using the fowl of the cola system, we have these rings or these bands that need to be applied around the top part of these jars, and that's recommended that you only use them one time, which is what I'm going to do. This is a previous band that I used in the last, and you can see it has stretched out. Not going to risk it with soup, and it's best not to reuse your bands anyway, but you can use them for storage if you want to use your jars for storage instead. So I'll be popping on all these new rings and then getting my soup into my jars. Now it is suggested to warm your rings up to get them on as well. It makes it easier to get them into place when they're nice and warm, especially here when it's so cold at the moment. So into the hot water they've gone as well, ready to be put onto all of the rims. It's easier to do it now than it is to do it later on, because I can't hold the jars and put a ring on when I've got boiling soup inside them. So I do it while my jars are warming up. Okay, got all of my rings on, and I'm just making certain that they are all flat and they're not flipped up anywhere, because that will prevent them sealing. Just running around the tops of every jar just to make sure there are no imperfections, although I'm really careful with these jars because of their age. Yeah, no, they're perfect. All good. All right, soup's ready. Water's heating up in the canner. So the soup is reduced down only about 1 centimetre or so. So I expect that I'm going to be filling 6 of those jars, and I might be lucky to have enough left over for dinner tonight. I'm just going to turn the pressure canner down because it's also coming up to temp, and I still need to fill my jars. Sorry about that, steam. Okay, filling the jars, getting them into the pressure canning them for 60 minutes, allowing them to cool down, and then going from there, checking their seals and putting them on the shelf once they're cooled down. Okay, so I have 6 in total of my Fowler Vicola jars. Now, if you're using mason jars, whether they be ball mason jars or any other variety of the jars, you leave 1 inch headspace. With the Fowler Vicola jars, with experience, I know that as soon as I reach the height of that neck, so there's a shoulder here, a ridge here, and then we've got this flat neck area, I know that if I have liquid up in that area, I tend to get siphoning, so especially when I'm doing a soup for an hour. So I will just clean this area here off, but I don't bring my liquid any further than that top of that shoulder. Now I've just got 1 bowl left as well for dinner tonight, but 6 850 ml, so you would need 5 normal size quart jars or 10 pint jars for this recipe. All clean, ready just to have their tops and their clips now put on, and then into the pressure canner for an hour. So that's my tomato sauce recipe. It's been used by the family for generations. However, it's not been pressure canned, it's always just been water bathed, but because of the change in tomato acidity levels over the generations, there's a recipe for pressure canning it, and I feel safer doing that. Like I said, the cans do have citric acid in them, so if you're using fresh tomatoes, you will need to add some citric acid to bring up the acidity to make these shelf stable. Okay, quickly ready to go into the canner. I am double clipping because this is a long processing time for an hour, even though you only need to usually use 1 clip. I'm using new clips as well, and that's purely because I managed to get hold of some new old stock as well. So I've changed from my really old bands over to some new ones. I'm pretty certain these are all going to be perfectly fine, but into the canner they go, and in an hour's time, I guess I'm going to know. All right, thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe and share if you like. That's my ingredients and my recipes, and I'll pop the ingredients and recipe and the method also into the description in due time. All right, thanks very much. Bye now. And that's why I like the Fowler size 27s. 6 beautifully snug large jars. I could fit 2 more in here as well because of their shape. So I could fit 8 into the canner. That 6 fits perfectly. Lid goes on, and I'm done for the day in the kitchen for now. I'm going to head outside to the pens. Bye now.